Hi and welcome to another very exciting tutorial. Last week Nina, our STC speaker and design expert, showed you how you can create this great looking login screen in under 10 minutes using Sketch. And if you haven't already seen this video, then check it out, it's linked in the info box below. And she created this great looking login screen using Sketch, and many of you just want to know how you can actually transfer this design into code. And this week we're going to do just that. We're going to translate this design into code so that we can run it in the simulator and also on a real device. And it's going to look something like that. So you see, these are buttons. These are real text fields where we can enter real text, and this is what we're going to do today. And by the way, Nina and I are also going to plan a course together where we will focus on designing for iOS developers, which means that you can learn how you as iOS developers can make great designs and also how you can afterwards translate those designs into code. So let us know what you think about that, and maybe also what you would expect from such a course down in the comments below. And now let's get started with creating this application and translating this design into code. But before we fire up Xcode, let's see what we really need to create that application. Well, Nina exported for me some of the design elements, and we're going to have a look at that in the assets folder. And as you can see, we actually only have 3 assets. So we do have the background image in 2 different resolutions, a 2x version and a 3x version as JPEGs. We do have this background card as PNG in a 2x and 3x version, and we do have the logo also in a 2x and 3x version, also as JPEG. And notice please that the background color of the logo and the background color of the background card are the same. This means we can use JPEGs, and using JPEGs instead of PNGs sometimes, or in most cases, increases the performance of your apps because you don't have alpha channels or transparencies that need to be rendered. So whenever possible, try to export JPEGs without an alpha channel, so without opacity, because this is going to increase your app's performance. So this is what we have, and another thing that we have here are the colors which we are going to use. So we have for the text fields, we do have the color of the text itself. We have the color for the labels that describe what we should place into those text fields, and we do have the button background color. So with that information, we can now fire up Xcode and see what we can do. So let me bring up the beta version of Xcode and let's create a new application, which is going to be a single view application. Let's just call it login screen. Click next and create that on the desktop. And let's make this a little bigger. And let's move to the assets folder in our project navigator here. And I will bring up now my Finder window where I've got the assets. So let's do it that way. And all we need to do now is select all of those assets and drag and drop them into our assets folder. And Xcode automatically generates the appropriate items here for the login, for the background card, for the background for the login, the background card, and for the logo, which was called My App. And we do not use 1x versions because there is no app out there that supports iOS 10 that does not have a Retina display. So we don't need a 1x version here. So now that we have that, let's head to our main storyboard and our view controller. And what we want to do here, first of all, is add an image view for our background image. So let's bring that up and size it so that it fits to the whole screen, which is, by the way, iPhone 6s screen at the moment, but we'll make that adaptive so that it runs on an iPhone 6s or 6s Plus, on a 5s or 5 SE. And let's now move to our size inspector. And since we're working with the beta version of Xcode 8, or if you watch this video later, you can use, of course, Xcode 8. And we do have those auto resizing classes here. And that means that we do not need, for this easy case, we do not have to create auto layout constraints. We can just use those auto resizing masks. And we pin it to not only to the top and to the left, but also to the right and to the bottom, and make sure that our image view stretches so that exactly what happens in this animation also happens in our application, so that our image resizes with the screen size. And let's now move to the attributes inspector and simply select the BG login image here and make sure that we have aspect fill selected as the content mode. And that's it. And if we now have a look at the different sizes, so we can click on the View As, and then we can choose different phones. So let me zoom out a little, and let's choose the 6S, works fine. Let's choose the 5SE, also works fine, and this is pretty cool. And as you can see, what Nina also did was, if you remember her video, she created the background image and then placed a solid layer on top of it, and then reduced its opacity so that everything is a little more visible. And she also exported the background image together with this solid layer so that we don't have to put a special view on top of it. And this also saves, again, performance on your application. So now with that done, let's go one step ahead and add another image view, which is going to be responsible for our, and what's it called? For our login background card. So let's then place this login background card right here. Make sure that we have the correct content mode selected. Let's choose aspect fit here. This helps us to define the correct size for our asset here, and let's choose the 6S if it's not already chosen, and then we position it somewhere in the center. And let's maybe make this a little bigger, something like that, and center it. And depending on how your designer feels about things like that, there are going to be arguments about positioning, and I can now simply ignore that and don't have to worry about the perfect positioning. I'm just making sure it's centered. And if you want to translate the design 1-to-1, 100%, then make sure that you also have the distances noted and that you place everything just correctly. But we're completely content with that for the moment. It's about getting the principal idea behind translating designs into code or into real applications. So we have our background login view here now, which is simply an image view. And what we can do now already is positioning it. And what we want to do here is we want to create some constraints. So I press Control on the keyboard and click drag from my login BG card to my view, which is the view of the view controller. And what I want to do is I want to center it horizontally and vertically in the container, which means I can press Shift on the keyboard and just select both of them. And then I hit return to apply those constraints. And what I also want to do is fix its size in width and height. And I'll simply do the same again. Hit return on the keyboard. And as you can see, all lines turn blue. And this means the auto layout engine is satisfied. Now let's have a look on the different devices. So again, the 6 Plus works fine, 6S works fine, and the 5SE also works fine. So we're all good with that. So let's continue with the logo, and let's choose the 6S again. And you might have guessed it, we put another image view right here, and then this was called My App. Again, we select aspect fit. Here, maybe it's useful to select clips to bounds. If we were to use aspect fill, for example, if we do not have clips to bounds activated, you see that the image exceeds its actual space. So let's just activate it. Make this aspect fit. Scale that down a little. Maybe something like this. And again, depending on how much your designer wants, or how you yourself want the design reflected in the real app, you can play a little around here with the sizes and find out what works for you, or apply the exact positions that you were provided with. So now let's also apply some constraints to that logo. So again, I press Control on my keyboard and click drag to my login BG card and release here. And what we want to do is, first of all, vertical spacing to the top of the background card, and also center horizontally. This is so I can press Shift to select both of those constraints and then hit Enter, and we're done. And then all I need to do is fix the width and height of my logo, press Enter, and we're done. And as you can see, we again have the blue lines, which means that our auto layout engine is satisfied. And now we are coming to the most complicated part, actually, which are the text fields, since these are not custom text fields. If we have a look at the design again, you can see that the text fields do have such a solid border, and they also have a label indicating what we should place in there, which means that we also need kind of an edge inset that we need to apply to the text we're putting into our text field. So let's first of all start really simple by simply adding a text field or two to our view. And let's make some adjustments here. I'm placing a demo text in here, let's say Tim Cook. And the first thing we want to change is the border style. And I'm going to choose this first option here, which deactivates all border styles and gives us kind of a plain looking text field. And then I'm going to make sure that its height is kind of 50 pixels. And well, I can't see a lot right now, so I'm placing it somewhere here, increasing the size a little, but this doesn't look too good. So first of all, let's change the font a little. We can choose a custom font here. I'm choosing Helvetica here. And the text size, let's keep it at 17, and I'm saying this should be bold. And let's now take the color, which we have here. So I have the text field color, which is 5B657C. So I'm copying that color code and choosing the RGB slider here, which is currently at grayscale. So I'm changing that to RGB. And then I'm simply inserting this hexadecimal code here, hitting return, and then we have the correct color here. But what we don't have is the nice color or the solid frame around our text field. And what we can do here, and also to make sure that we have the correct edge inset, is creating a subclass of UITextField. So what we want to do is clicking on View Controller, press Command N on the keyboard, selecting a Cocoa Touch class. And what we want to do here is now create maybe a login text field, let's call it that way. And this is going to be a subclass of UITextField. So let's click Next and create that class. And we can also remove that comment here with the drawRect function. And to actually apply this border, we need to override layout subviews. So let's make sure to call super layout subviews. And then we can simply take self, because we are the login text field, take our layer, take the border color. So let's apply the correct color here, and I'm going to use white, color with part of white. So I also got that value from Nina, so I'm using 231 from the RGB scale. Divide that by 255 because we need to provide a decimal value for the percentage of white, and we can get that by dividing through the maximum of the RGB scale. So it ranges from 1 to 255, and I'm setting the alpha value to 1. Let's build that. Seems not to work because since we're using a layer here, we need to convert that to a CG color, but now we should get rid of this error, and that works. And what we also need to do is taking the layer again and changing the border width to 1. So I also got that information from Nina. She told me that this border should have a thickness of 1 pixel. So to get the edge inset right, and also let's make one adjustment first to see these changes applied to Interface Builder, what we can simply do is writing @ib designable right above the class definition here, and that makes that activates live coding or live preview for Interface Builder, and we can see all the changes we make in code here rendered live in Interface Builder. But let's do the last two changes. First of all, let's override the TextRect for bounds function, and all we need to do here is return bounds with an inset by 8 pixels to in vertical direction and 7 pixels in horizontal direction. Again, these are values I received from Nina. And then also let's do the same thing for the editing rect for bounds, and let's return the bounds, simply the text rect again here for the bounds that we receive here. So again, we override those two functions, TextRect, to create an edge inset. And to create that edge inset, we take the bounds that are given as a parameter here, and we apply an inset with 8 pixels offset to the right and 7 pixels offset to the top. And we are using the same function here and call it in editing rect, because as soon as you type into a text field, you get again another rectangle, and that we need to apply these changes to. So let's see how that affects our text field. And I'm selecting the text field now, and I'm changing its custom class in the identity inspector to login text field. And as you can see, it's updating, and within a second or so we should see the changes. But at the moment it looks that our text is pretty much centered, which we don't want. So we head back to the sizes or the attributes inspector here in our text field. And what we should change is that the text is not vertically centered, but put to the bottom. And this means we now have applied our edge inset. I think it was 7 pixels or something like that. And we can now bring up a label to our text field and insert username here, because this is what it should sound. And then we change, let's first of all change the color, and need to open up that one here, and this is C9, C9, C9. So I'm copying the hexadecimal code again and apply the color right here. So this was that. And then let's change the font again to Helvetica. Let's reduce the file size, the text size a little, set this to bold. Or maybe I'll go down a little more. And that's it. Now we can resize my label again, maybe make it even a little smaller, maybe 10. Again, your designer should actually tells you what to do here, but I'm pretty much free. So I'm just doing what seems right to me at the moment. And I'm placing it somewhere here. So this looks nicely aligned with Tim Cook here, or with the name that we're going to enter. And this is actually all there is to the text field. So now we can go ahead and copy the complete text field with the label, copy and paste it, and put it right below this one. And now we simply change that to password. And now we have to apply the constraints again. So let's take first of all the upper text field. Let's define a vertical spacing between the logo and the text field. So I'm just control clicking vertical spacing, and also a trailing to the login BG card. So let's just make sure that we can select that trailing right here. Let's fix the height at 50. And we're still seeing some orange lines here because the auto layout engine thinks that we want the leading and trailing space to be fixed, or to be pinned to the left and right side of our background card. And what we can do to change that is simply opening up this a little more here, click on the arrow, and tell our constraint to update and fix the misplacement. And by that, our constraint now updated to this distance here. Now let's apply some constraints to the second text field here. So I'm simply click and drag to the upper text field, tell it to have a vertical spacing. I'm selecting Shift again on my keyboard. It should use the leading space from our text field right here. And they should have equal widths and equal heights. I hit return and we're already done. There is a slight misplacement here, so I'm saying updating frames and we're done. And now we only need to apply some constraints to our labels. So I'm going back to my structure, pressing Control on the keyboard and click drag to the Tim Cook text field first of all, to the upper one. And what I want to do is adding a leading space, or let's just use a horizontal spacing and a vertical spacing here. Hit return. And then let's see what we have, what kind of problem we have with the misplacement here. Just a slight misplacement, so I'm clicking on the exclamation here, update the frames, fix misplacement, and then I'm just moving this around a little to be where I want it, somewhere here. And then what I do is do the same thing again, and I update the constraints, and we're good to go. So we now should do the same thing for our password. So let's use the second Tim Cook field, horizontal and vertical spacing, and it somehow is not content with what we did, so we fix misplacement and reorient it so that it fits nicely. All right, I'm all right with that, and then I update the constraints, and we're done. And now let's just have a quick look on the other devices. So we have the iPhone 5 SE, we have the iPhone 6 Plus, and it looks great everywhere. So let's now make one last change here to our password text field. Let's enable secure text entry so that you can see what you're actually typing in, or that others can see that. And let's now add our button, which is going to be just a standard button. We're going to make it in the same width as our text fields, also same height. So let's make it height 50 in the size inspector. And now we need to choose the correct color again, which is 9cc1d4. So I'm copying that from my color list. I'm going to the background color. I'm changing it, applying the correct hexadecimal code, and we're done with that. Now let's change the text color to white color. I'm, what does it say in the, I think it says register. It is register, yes. Okay, so I'm typing in register, and we're done with that. I'm changing the font to Helvetica, and I'm also making this bold, and I think we could increase the size a little to that. All right, so we're already done with the button. All that's left now is applying some constraints, and this is pretty simple. We simply click drag to the password text field. Let's add a vertical spacing. Let's make it equal widths, equal heights, and also select leading, and press enter, and we're done with the constraints. And the last thing that we need to do is add the forgot password button below our field here. So forgot your password, question mark, and position it somewhere here and apply some constraints. So I'm going to press Control, click drag to the login BG card, select vertical spacing, and then I'm also going to go back to my structure here and center it vertically, horizontally in my container, and we're done. And then there is a slight misplacement, so I'm updating my frames, and that's it. Okay, so now that we have done that, you may be wondering, well, it's not white, so actually this should be white and underlined, but how can we change that? Because there is no such option here for underlined in the font inspector here, and we can't really do something. So what we need to do is creating an outlet for our password button here. So let's just creating an outlet here using the assistant editor, password button, just calling it password button. I connect that, and then we need to create an attributed string for that. So let's just do that in view.load right here. You could also create a function for that if you have to set up multiple user interface components, but we can do it pretty simple here and just in view.load. And I'm simply creating a constant here, which is called attributed string. And this is an NS attributed string with a string and attributes. And the string is going to be forgot your password. And then we can apply some attributes in this dictionary here. And the first one we need to change actually is the NS foreground color attribute name. And we just use UI color white here. And the second attribute that we need is the NS underline style attribute name, which is going to be just 1 because we only want it to be underlined once. And then we can take our password button and then set attributed title, which is attributed string for the control state normal. And that's it, actually. Oh, before we run it, let's maybe make one last adjustment. Let's select our forgot your password button, and let's change the text color also here. And we need to adjust the font here as well. So let's set it to Helvetica. Let's set it to bold, and maybe let's run it in with that settings one more time, and let's see how that works. And we should get the simulator any second. And here it is. And as you can see, this looks really great. We have a real working text field. We can enter text here with the correct etch set. We have our password text field here. We can click register or forgot your password. So as you have seen, it isn't too hard to translate a design into code. And if you are interested in more of these techniques, then stay definitely tuned for our course that is going to be released soon. And also please tell us in the comments below what you'd like to see in such a course that is going to be all about designing applications from an developer point of view, and also then translating those designs into code. So thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this little session, and I'll see you next week.